Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Carnivore. If you're new here, my name is Laura Russell. I have been carnivore for over 5 years, was keto 28 years prior to that. Prior to that, I was standard American diet, which is what got me to 313 pounds when I was 20. So I'm going to go over how I render my tallow. So for you that don't know what tallow is, that is beef fat that after you've cooked, you can recook it again, basically at a low heat in a pot to get rid of the impurities. Then you can run it through like a mesh sleeve. I mean, there's all different ways. You can do it through cheesecloth, and that will purify it. And then what you end up with looks just like you would expect, very whitish in color. It's shelf stable for 10 years because I put mine in the jars very, very hot, not boiling, but hot. Then I put the ring and lids on. I turn mine upside down when it's done. I let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes that way, turn that back over, and it's good. So that is how I do mine. But I'm going to show you like the size of the cuts of my beef fat that I do. So I'm going to put this up a little and see if I can get it to where you can see what I'm doing. You won't see my face, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'll show you kind of what I do. You definitely want to have sharp knives. I buy my beef fat, and it is ribeye fat is what I prefer. There have been times where I couldn't get it, and I just got the beef trimming, which is fine. But you try to trim off, as much of the meat just because it makes it easier for you. But some of this is marbled in, so I'm not going to stand here for 45 minutes and do that. So we're not going to do that today. I'll just render it and those meat particles. So I'll show you when I get to where it's just more fat, kind of what I do. So this is something that I eat every single day, along with whatever meat I'm eating, whether it's hamburger, whether it's deer, whether it's lamb. Doesn't matter, whatever it is I'm having, I always have ribeye fat that I cook up with it. And I've been doing that for quite a long time. I am somebody that I cannot tolerate um, pork. I haven't tried it in a while, so I may try that again just to see kind of if it affects me. When you have something that kind of affects you that way, it's really hard to make yourself try it when what you're eating is working. So, but I do every so often try to get in there and change it up and just see um, if I'm able to go back to any of that because the carnivore diet is kind of like the ultimate elimination diet. So if you have aches and pains, if you have different diseases, you have kidney disease, you have diabetes, things like that. Those are all things that many of us have come here to alleviate. And if you're here watching this, you probably have already seen plenty of videos knowing um, that does happen when you clean up the diet. So I'm trying to get to this so I can get to that other piece so I can show you the kind of the size. I should have better knives than I have, but most of my really sharp knives I save for deer season and I pack them away when deer season's over. So they'll be coming out. It is bow season here in Illinois. So if you're on here, let me know where you are from, where you're watching from. Okay, that has a little bit of meat on that I want to kind of cut down, cut away. So that's kind of what you will start with when you get the beef fat. And hopefully where you live, you can get beef fat. I do know that some people, like some of the stores, some of the butchers, they really don't want to sell it. Um, but there is no statute that I was able to find um, anywhere that says that they can't sell it. I think that is a choice that they make. Some of them, it's because they're going to utilize it for hamburger to mix in to make, 73, 27, things like that. Mhm. But I think it's a personal preference that these places are doing. I haven't had them show me where they had any kind of ruling that said they couldn't do that. It's just a choice. So hopefully you're able to get it. If not, I think you'll have to do like your bacon, save your grease from that. It's storming here, so if we get a little haywire, that's why. All right. So that's about the size, okay, of the cubes of fat that I make. Okay. So kind of like a sugar cube. If anybody remembers those back in the day. Um, that's what that is. That knife's already lost its ability. I do have wooden cutting boards, um, but I use those kind of as a plate. So I really don't use them much for the actual cutting board stuff that I do. And the nice thing about this, I'm not telling you you should do it this way, but of course we have a brand new stove, so I'm really not worried. But I'm going to be making up some lotions today, excuse me, for some psoriasis patients, people that I know, um, things like that, that have requested some help. So I'm going to be doing that um, with what I'm making today. And I'll be taking that stuff by different people's houses today. So we're going to be doing that. It was so neat. One of my patients that got discharged is 93. She's going to be 94. And she wants me to drop off facial serum for her because she's got some age spots. Looks really good for her age, really healthy. She had a fall. That's why she had home health, but otherwise, she's great. I mean, it's amazing. Um, she eats very clean. She just eats stuff that she has basically out on her farm. Same with like all the animals. She has the most delicious looking cows. When I would pull up every day, I'd be like, get in my car, you know. So I'm going to turn this up because you don't really want to see that. So let me see if there's any comments. Hello, Kathy. Did mine yesterday, first time. Okay, so Kathy said she did her rendering yesterday for the first time. She strained it multiple times, only got 2 pints, but they are beautiful, so satisfying. Worked just like you said. They do. It's really very simple. I usually end up with just like the jars I showed you. Usually I get 2 quarts. I usually do 5 pounds of ribeye fat at a time if I can get it. Deer season, it does get a little bit hairy because us deer hunters always try to get fat from the butchers and the locker plants. We process all of our own. We don't. I'm not going to pay somebody else to do something that I can do. I take vacation days around deer season because I love to hunt. So I save it all up during the year. Everybody's like, you never take a day off. And it's like, oh, don't worry. As deer season comes, you will have a hard time finding me inside here. So, but they take that fat, and a lot of us will grind that up with the deer meat because it's so lean, but it's so good too. And I shoot those. I mean, I've shot several bucks because necessity, like I had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I was like, I am sitting in a deer stand and I need to get out of here. So whatever shows up next is going down. So I've had that happen. It's funny. Several years ago, I did a video, and no, actually, it was just a picture. I just put a picture out on Facebook of my doe, and I covered up the spot, with my gun. And yeah, I had a lady that really kind of came after me. So I assumed that she didn't eat meat. And that was the wrong assumption. She does. Um, it was quite funny to kind of go back and forth with her. Um, I said, oh, you don't eat meat? And she says, I eat meat every day. And I'm like, where do you get your meat? And she says, well, I get it from the grocery store like everybody else. And I go, okay, so you think it was born in cellophane? No, like that was on the hoof somewhere on somebody's farm, um, which she just was appalled by. So I don't know. She kind of went away. And then my Facebook page that I had 2 years ago got hacked by somebody in Indonesia. I'm glad they have nothing better to do than do that. So I have never ran into that gal since then. So I have no idea what she would be doing now. So let's see. I only eat beef. Nothing else seems to satisfy me like fatty red meat. I would agree with that. Um, I haven't had chicken. I haven't had turkey. I will do occasional fish, you know, um, occasional sardines, but none of that stuff seems to stick with me either. I agree. It does seem that the red meat, and I think it's the ruminant meat, tends to do the best. So, and the ruminant meats are anything that has multi-chambered stomachs. So around where I live, that's going to be deer, beef, lamb, some buffalo. Um, I don't, I'm not really sure if elk is a multi-chambered. I would guess it is, but I don't know that. But I would say yes, that they would be. So we'll see. So hopefully, if you can't find beef fat at your local butcher, if you are where you can get around any farmers that raise beef, you potentially could kind of make a deal with them to buy it from them because I mean most of them don't really care what you're doing with it. I'm not sure why it matters to some of the grocery stores, but 'tis the America that we live in right now. So I don't know if you can hear the storm in the background, but we need rain. So I had planned to do this early this morning, and then I'm going to let the fat, I'm going to get it started on the stove. I'm going to get my lotion made, and then I have to go over and get more ribeye fat from where I get it and visit my mother today since it's my day off. I am on call, so I have to be kind of close to where I can, if I'm needed, I can get to the patients. So I'm going to be doing that. But I'm not worried about leaving this stuff on. I leave it on very low on my stove. Most of the time, it's 3 to 4 hours for me to render it down, but I do it at a very, very, very low temp. Okay. And I'm not saying to walk away from your stuff if that's something you're worried about doing. You do not have to. I'm just telling you that is what I do, and I've never had any problems with it. I need to put a post out there. I've got lotions that I made that is harvest scent. I think that's what it's called. Um, just like my candles, I have a bunch of harvest scent, cinnamon. I think I have cinnamon left. I'm not positive. Um, Apple cider. Trying to think what else did I have. Um, cider, pumpkin pie. I think I have some of my beef tallow and beeswax that's organic from here. My neighbor, not me, because I'm allergic to bees, so I have to be careful of that. So this is kind of what it's going to start out looking like. All right, so what I do is I'm going to put it on my middle burner. And you don't have to do this, but I did take like today's ribeye fat that I made this morning with burger, and I strained that oil off and I put it in the pot ahead of time. I feel like it helps the fat kind of cook a little better. And then I put the lid on. And what I do is I'll just take a wooden spoon and every so often I kind of stir that around prior to me leaving for this morning. I will do that. Albany, Georgia. So Kathy, did you get hit by the really ironic, strange type of hurricane that dropped water in places that normally doesn't get that. Just wondering, Lisa. Greetings from Southeast Indiana. Hello. That's cat. Yeah. Or is it a dog? I don't know. Good morning, Nourishment Redacted. Hi, I haven't seen you for a while. Nice to see you. Hopefully, all is going well. Um, are you going to be at Keto Palooza? I've asked a lot of people, but I didn't know if you were going to be there or if Nia or anybody's going to be there. I will be there. We leave next the 10th. We're going to leave from here, drive there, so we'll be there Thursday evening. Hi, Kimberly. She's on the Life Pro machine. Oh, okay. So you're getting shook up. That's good. It's good for you. Lisa says, when ribeyes were on special, I bought 20 pounds. Oh, good. Of ribeye fat for $1 a pound. Nice. Yes, I have air fried chunks also, and eat those or put them in like a cast iron skillet. That works good too. And then I save the fat and then I render it down from that. So, but you can do it with an air fryer and get the majority of it. There's multiple ways of doing this rendering. This is my preferred way. I tried the water bath method where you pour water into it, you put it in the fridge and you bring it out and it was too many steps for me. I know that there's a lot of people that do it, but and it may be great. I didn't find that it was any different, except it was harder for me to jar it when I did that cold method. So I don't prefer that for myself. Let's see. Da-da-da. I love ribeye fat bites. I absolutely love them. Thanks. Yes, we love the stove. Of course, it mismatches. So we're very cheap or frugal, so we didn't buy the stove top thing, the hood yet. We're probably going to do that next week before we leave to go on vacation. I just, you get in the mood where you're like, I don't really want to rewire anything today. I just want to be done. So we haven't done that, but we will. And I do love it. It's beautiful. I will tell you, gas stoves are double the price they used to be. And we all know why and who, but that's okay. I literally contemplated buying a second one and storing it out in our storage thing just to be sure that I had one. But then I thought, how many cylinders of propane do you have? How much charcoal do you have? How much wood do you have? And I have these cook stoves that you can use those items in. And I'm like, it'll be fine. That's just my prepper brain, the way my brain thinks. So, yeah. Let's see. Yes, so Nourishment Redacted, it's actually ribeye fat that I had. They bag them up for me at the store in Iowa, so it usually ends up being about this big of a bag. So it usually ends up being about 5 pounds of ribeye fat, and then I just cut them into like the sugar cube size of squares and put in there. I do a little bit of liquid fat that I've used today and put that in the bottom, and then I'll stir that a little bit at a little bit of a higher heat, like a low medium, and get it kind of started and get everything starting to brown up a little. And then I turn it down very low, put the lid on, and I walk away. And I literally mean when I walk away, I leave my house and come back 2.5, 3 hours later. And usually I cook mine down 3 to 4 hours, just depending on each batch looks a little different. So this batch does have some of the meat still on it. The batch I made last week that made these two, I had sat there and spent tedious amounts of time cutting every little teeny piece of fat off of it, which is fine, but I didn't find like it made that much of a difference. So I'm not going to do that if I don't have the time to do it, which I do not. So let's see. Lisa C. Yes. Yeah. No. I logged. Oh. Oh, good. Well, Kathy said that the hurricane, if that's what we're going to call it, missed her, which is great. It's very ironic. It's very weird to watch the Weather Channel because I'm a conspiracy theorist. I am a conspiracy theorist. Um, to watch the Weather Channel and see these guys that have been doing this for 20, 30 years going, we don't understand. Why did this not do this? Why is it tracking like that? Why did it hold on to the water? How did a mountain town flood? Blah, 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 blah. And I mean, and then all at once, literally, bzz, that channel went off. And it was off for 20 minutes, only channel that was off. And then it came back on. And all of a sudden they were like, well, we see these weather patterns change over time, climate change. And I'm like, right. Okay. Then I take my tinfoil hat off because my husband's rolling his eyeballs at me, which I don't care. It's all right. Let's see. So Lisa C has made tallow or rendered as well, and she says she does not like the water method either. Oh yeah, crock pot. Yep, I've seen the crock pot method. So that was the third method that I've seen. I have not done that because I did not keep my crock pot. Years ago, I gave it to my daughter, I think, or maybe I don't know. I gave it away to somebody because there really was no, for me, that's not the way I eat the majority of my meat. I do have a pressure cooker, Ninja, whatever. If I want to do it that way, I can do it that way. But I had so many other things, and as you can see, my house is teeny tiny, which I love. I do not want a giant house that I have to pay taxes and clean and paint. So I like the small house. But yes, let's see. So Nourishment Redacted said, I am really interested in being more self-sufficient, canning meat, making tallow, and cooking for the family. Yes, if anything during 2020 through 2020, still today, has woken up a lot of people, I would say, is that we haven't had a war in the United States, for so long, and it's just been in these other countries. So it's been removed from our mindset of thinking. But if something like that happens in your country, you don't have grocery stores, you don't have hospitals, you don't have pharmacies, you don't have these things, you don't have water municipalities. Those things go down. You don't have the electricity. So I don't say that to scare the hell out of everybody. I'm just saying that it's what happens when you have war. And I'm hoping we don't ever have to see that, whether it be a civil war or from somebody foreign, but it could happen. And so I do think I have some videos out there, Nourishment, that go over like canning meat. Kim from Last Day of Normal, I believe, she taught me how to can scrambled eggs. And you have small children. I will tell you, you do these scrambled eggs with any kind of meat and fat you want and salt in like pint jars, and it's enough breakfast for you could probably do three kids or one to two adults, and if it's for survival, it's something, but it was so awesome. I was like, we did a live with like Nia and that, and you might have, I don't remember if you were on that one or not. You might not have been there that night. That might have been when I think you had mold issues and was moving and doing stuff like that. But anyway, she said, I was showing like I can deer meat, I can beef, you can chicken and pork and whatever, any kind of meat you can. And we were going over like the prep stuff that, each of us has. And I canned butter. And she was like, I can scrambled eggs. And I was like, what? What did you say? I was like, oh, you have to fill me in. So, she kind of went over that. And there's two methods of that. You can cook the eggs before you do it, or you can put them in raw. And I've done both, and both tasted fine. So I think either way is fine. But that was really unique to see that. It's nice to be in a community where you can bounce these kind of ideas off of other people who have been doing it. I have canned and cold packed my entire life, and I'm 53, I will be 54, but I never came across canned scrambled eggs, but man, was it good. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And you don't have to heat these things up. That's the nice thing. You got these jars of food and they are completely shelf stable. And I've opened up deer, I've opened up beef. A couple weeks ago, I opened up chicken that I had cold packed 9 years ago for my husband. He wanted to do some Chinese dish with all the carbohydrates and stuff in it because he's not, as you can see, the breads. He is not keto carnivore. He eats a lot better meat and fat than he used to, but he is still a somewhat standard American diet. But so he wanted that, and I was like, "Well, let's see," because I hadn't bought any chicken. There's no chicken in my freezer at all. Trying to think, I don't think I have any, and so I think I have chicken livers. I'll take that back. But I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." So, and it was. He said it was great. And you'll know, like I have people go, "Oh, I'm worried about botulism or I'm worried about, getting sick." You're going to know if the top of the lid is popped, you're pretty sure it's good. Then when you take that lid off, I will promise you, if it's not good, there will be absolutely zero chance of you not knowing it because it's a smell you'll never forget. So I'm not worried about those. Um, Nourishment says she wants more of a prepper brain. I think being in the medical field during the debacle of 2020 to today, which still continues, made it even worse. But being raised next door to a grandmother who went through the depression, whose family and stuff came over through Auschwitz and stuff, um, not depending on government, not depending on your governors, not depending on any of these outside entities, these forces, because that's not really what their job is to do. They are supposed to secure your border and keep you a republic. So that's their job. I think they've forgotten their job. In fact, I'm sure they have. But that is what their job is. It is our job to take care of our daily life. They've tried to force slowly over time so that we all become you know we have to be dependent on them and their nanny state. Um I do not do that. I will never do that. And this is half water, half melaleuca coffee, and ghee and salt. I only do that 1 or 2 times a week. The rest of the days I just do water. If you wanted to know that, and maybe you didn't. Let's see. So Lisa C. Yes, cooking with gas, I do think's the best. I grew up with a electric stove, was used to that. The first apartment I had when I had just turned 17, prior to buying my house a few months later, it was electric. My first house was electric. I bought my second house when I was 28. That was the first time that I had a gas stove. No, I was 25 when I bought my second house, and it had a gas stove, and I was like, "Ooh, this heats up right now." The oven gets to 350 degrees, everything was so much quicker, and I love it. So, and when we lost power we had a derecho, which is another new phenomenon that we didn't used to have either. Anyway, we had that. It knocked out all the power for like 81 hours in the little town I'm in, and we could still cook. You had to light it with a lighter because it has an electrical thing. Big deal. And so we were able to cook, boil water, stuff like that for my husband because he has to have a hot shower. I do cold showers. I don't do hot showers at all. Let's see. I'm just going to catch up here. See, when I was in second grade. Okay, so Lisa says when she was in second grade in 1967, we age ourselves, don't we? Um, we read an article in Weekly Reader about how they were now controlling the weather to grow more food. They are always caring for us. I'll probably have to go back out and like demonetize this video myself, or they're going to do it for me because I have to say this. So last year after the derecho, I had a patient who's 96 and her husband's also 96. And he had on his veteran's hat. So of course I thanked him for his service and asked him, what branch he was in and where he'd been and stuff like that. He had another hat on his wall. It's a red hat, if you know what I mean. And so I was like, ooh, this is a safe space. Got to have a safe space, right? And so I was like, oh, I can pick this guy's brain without getting offended. Um, And so anyway, I said, okay, you guys have been alive all this time. You guys lived through 1936, which my grandmother used to talk about all the crazy weather that happened in 36. Like they're always saying, like, we're warming up, we're getting too cold in the winter. 1936, we haven't hit those. So I'm like, how is it getting worse if we're not even hitting where it was in 1936? So I don't know if any of you remember your grandparents, parents talking about 1936, but it was a hell of a year. And so I said, do you ever remember hearing about derechos or anything similar to that? He says, you can get those straight line winds off of a tornado. And I said, correct. And he says, but we didn't have a tornado that day. There was no tornadoes that hit Illinois into Indiana because it went all the way across. And he said, so you can't explain that as being straight line winds for that, which is how like the damage was all straight line wind type stuff. Um, and he said he was in the South Pacific. I am not good with geography. I can't even tell you what he was in. I have no idea. He just said the South Pacific in the mid 40s, and they were doing testing then and manipulating clouds over the ocean there and putting particles of into those. This is out of his mouth. I did not ask this. I did not ask specifics. I just asked what he had done. And he said they did that to make it rain. And he looked at me and he put his hat up a little bit and he says, if you think for a minute that in 1946 we could do that, that we haven't gotten smarter, he goes, I've got a bridge to sell you. And I was like, oh, just reinforced my tinfoil hat wearing. So let's see. Kimberly says, my husband laughs at me, but oh well. I am very comical to my husband, and that's okay. I'm also 10 times healthier, so that's okay too. So, Nourishment said, yeah, 2020 woke me up too. Yeah. 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 It was very eye opening in multiple different ways. My husband, we live in Illinois, which I absolutely despise with a capital D. But I have children and grandchildren who probably are not going to leave the state. So right now I'm kind of holding here. I would love nothing more than to get into Missouri or Iowa. But, whatever happens, happens. If it comes up, that's what we'll do. Um, if for some reason in the next few months some stuff goes down and some of these states decide to secede, then I'm definitely going to one of those. So we'll see how that goes, but that is going to be something that I may do. Um, but I was telling my husband, he goes, well, it didn't really affect me really bad. He works in car parts. So he is a manager over car parts for a car dealership, but he has lots of business from farmers and all that. And he said, really didn't affect me. And I said, no, you weren't in the medical field. I was, I mean, they tried to destroy us in the medical field and I never could, I was like, why would you walk out these nurses that 10 weeks ago we were like the heroes working in these COVID units for you? And we were great. We didn't have all the protective stuff that they say protects you. And we were just great. And then if we just didn't want to comply, which I'm not a complier of anything almost ever, then we were no good. We were trash and thrown out like dishwater, which is fine. I made my place do that. Um, so that kind of woke me up of like, ooh, my grandmother, the more, and actually I put out when all this stuff first started happening, I put out on my old Facebook, the one that got hacked somehow. All I put out there is what my grandmother had said to me multiple times growing up was it is not the government's job to take care of your sorry ASS. She said, and any government that wants to take care of all of its people's needs has an ulterior motive. Remember, they came through Auschwitz. They knew what it looks like to start out one way and end up being something different. So let's see. Ta-da. Hi, Susan. You did catch me live. I hadn't been doing a lot of lives lately, or even just your really fast little snippets. but my products that I make, I make all the tallow lotion and deodorant and shampoo and facial serum and candles and all kinds of stuff with my tallow and stuff like that. I did a vendor event last weekend and it wiped out everything. So I make so much of that, and then it's getting closer to fall. So a lot of my home health patients, I crochet them lap blankets. So I've been doing that too, which kind of is relaxing. So it helps relax me. So let's see. Kathy said, "We'd love to see you make pemmican." I may do that again. I do have, it would probably be a very small batch because I have like 50 pounds of pemmican in my prep room already, but I could do that too. Oh, Lisa says she's never done canned scrambled eggs. I did a video on it, but you could always check out. I think her name was Kim or Carrie. I'm so sorry, I forgot it. But it's from Last Day of Normal is her YouTube channel, and she has her. I mean, she does recipes and shows you on there too. And she probably did a better job of it than I did because when I did it, it was the first time I'd ever made it. So who knows? But I did show finished product. But you pressure can that too. I was just going to message you suggesting to do a carnivore prep video. Um, and Susan, when you say carnivore prep, are you meaning like the things I have in my prep room? Because not all of it's going to be carnivore. I have several hundreds of jars of meat, eggs, butter, tallow, lard, because yes, you can. Literally, I'm not saying that anybody wants to do this, but you can actually survive without food as long as you have salt, water, and take a spoonful of that every single day because they have had to do that before in the past. So it can be done. So as long as you have that, you're fine. But I do have beans, rice, sugar, flour, coffee, tea, coffee beans, tea, noodles. I mean, I have all of that stuff for bartering. So to trade off with people, and my husband will probably die if he doesn't have some starch. So I do have that, but that's what I would do. Then I have my medical supplies. Being a nurse, I have all the things that you could ever think that you might need. And I just bought these things a little at a time, like suture kits, um, staple. I can do stapling of skin if I needed to, and the removal. I can do stop clot. I have another device that goes on sticky, like say your cut is here and it's sticky on this side, sticky on this side, and then it's like a zip line to bring it together. I can't remember what that's called, but I have those antibiotics. I have all those things. And then I also have my natural antibiotics, which is oregano oil. I have viral things, so like your elderberry tinctures, your dandelion stuff. So I have all of those kinds of things that I make. And then, of course, I have my protection, we'll call it. And I don't show that online. They do not need to know. So Kim from the Last Day of Normal knows a lot. Yes, she does. And you've reached out to her too. That's good. Do you think it's okay to go on a glass stove or should I get a canner stove? Want to do the cold press water bath. Um, so there's two different styles of canning, okay? For low acid foods, I have always been trained to pressure can. If you have a glass top stove, I really would get a different base. So what I do mine with outside is like the old turkey fryer base that sits like this, kind of triangle-y looking and round. That's usually what I do mine on. I have done it on this stove, but of course it's not the glass. I don't think you want to get those up to that kind of heat for that amount of time because meats take an hour and 15 minutes to pressure can for a pint and an hour and a half for quarts. So I think I would buy a base. And mine just hooks up with LP. I always make sure I have plenty of LP. I have like large LP tanks, and then I have several little tanks. God forbid if my garage ever catches on fire because the town of Ferris, it's gonna be lit up. And I'm not the only one here that has that. So but yes, I would get an outside canner. Um, high acid foods. So, like I said, I do have like I've canned peaches for my husband. I've canned tomatoes, salsa. Um, I make chili base, spaghetti base, all of those things I make from our garden, and I can those and put in there. But those need a water bath. So that means the water goes over the top of the lid, and you just let it boil in that water. That doesn't take high pressure because it's a higher acid food. So, like green beans have to be pressure canned. At least that's how I've always done it for 40 years. And I've never gotten sick. I've never had them not work. So I'm too chicken to try. I've seen some videos where they say you can water bath the meat. I'm myself not going to do that. I don't trust it. I'm chicken. um, so let's see. Oh, yay. Hi. She's here. So last day of normal. And from Ohio, yes, deer season here too. October 1st opened up. That'll be tomorrow. Today I've got too many other things. I need to see my mom and stuff like that. So let's see. That's funny how we were just talking about you. You must have been like your ears were ringing because I was talking about your scrambled eggs that you can and how I had done a video, but I was like, you guys need to go out and see hers because you've done it multiple times. I'm sure you have it much better perfected than what I have. Um, yeah, let's see. I wish we had gas. We are electric here. We are renting the condo. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's okay to have the electric. I think a lot of people prefer the electric over a gas stove. Of course, in the media and coming down from our administration are like, it's so dangerous. Anytime they tell me something is dangerous or the alphabet agencies tell me not to do something, they're like, no, do this. I literally sprint as fast as I can in the opposite direction and do exactly what they say not to do. They really would be smarter if they kind of did reverse psychology, but they're not smart enough to know to do that. So, oh yeah, camping stove. Yep. I was going to say that's a good idea. My mom has a camping stove. The stuff that I have is not a camping stove that I have for outside cooking if it would happen. We have grates that we saved from our old stove that we're going to build a brick pit to have an outside in case we need it in the ground. But then I have like a travel thing that you actually can pack up and carry. It weighs like 4 pounds, I think, and it can be taken with you if you had to go. I don't plan on leaving my home unless I'm called to do so to help do something else. Otherwise, I'm not one of those people that packs up stuff to be ready to get out of my house because I don't plan on leaving. Let's see. Ta-ta-ta. Lisa says, my grandparents lived next door and talked of the Depression every day. It sunk in, yeah, and that's exactly it. These people lived through it, and no offense to people who have moved away from their parents and their children were raised not around them, but I am so thankful that I was raised around my grandparents. I think it was Ronald Reagan that says it takes 2 generations to forget history, and if you ask most kids right now anything about the Depression, stock market crash. I've heard some, oh, a stock market crash. And I'm like, okay, but what was the human toll? I could care less of the money toll. What was the human toll? And they have no idea. And they're not taught in school because we all know who runs the schools. Let's see. I never heard of that. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Ellie, you wouldn't have, yeah, heard of it because by 42, the majority of everybody had kind of reset. So and yeah, I'm not sure how affected World War II did to some of these other countries. I'm not positive because that's 42 is getting kind of close to when World War II. We actually had boots on the ground in 42 over there. We just didn't tell anybody we had them. So let's see. Lisa says came up, then it went mute, and I missed it. Oh, it's too bad. I'm not sure what. Oh, an ad came up. Oh, those darn ads. Let's see. So Kim says she is canning chicken tenders this morning. Oh, that's awesome. Um, have you ever canned like chicken legs, like in your quarts, where you leave the bone on and the skin on? I'm just wondering. I have done that. Um, and I really like it. It's almost like it made its own bone broth with having those bones in there. Plus, I put extra chicken bones in with it while I was doing it, but it really turned out good. My husband loves that. He'll take that out of anything he gets out of the um, grocery store. Hmm, that's interesting. Chicken tenders. Well, your family's going to be good to go if the stuff hits the fan, right? Everybody's like, "We're coming to your house." And I'm like, "I'll take a few, but there's only so much." 2020, the year I got blackballed from my doctor for not complying. I got blackballed from my employer, my state legislator, and my governor, who thought that making a mandate equaled law, but he forgot what branch of government he was in doesn't make law. I reminded him, as many of the rest of us did. We were very fortunate. We had lots of nurses, doctors, pharmacists, teachers that and business owners who stood their ground. Let's see. So Susan says, I woke up in 1992 and continued on. Yeah, I woke up to like the bad food supply and the poisons that are in our environment and food in 91. And I did, a Sean Baker video in I think February or March this year where he asked about like how I got into carnivore. And really mine was keto for 28 years. And then I just continued to improve and get into keto or carnivore. um, but we talked about my doctor who had really been kind of an asshole. And let me just get this stirred real quick. But anyway, we were talking about that doctor and how, what he had said to me, like, I'm going to die a fat ass, and all the nice comments that he made. I'm going to turn that down to low. Um, and I said, you know what, though? Now that I look back, I am so thankful to him that he did that to me. I was 20. So I didn't spend 70 years eating this crap. It forced me to go to my local library that I lived in, which is so cool because it literally is these huge stones. It kind of looks like a castle. It was awesome. And I went there and just did a deep dive in all the medical journals I could find. And I knew enough about Carnegie and those families and Rockefellers that I knew they had hijacked the medical schools and the system back in around 1910. So I really majority read 1850s through about 1910, and it's amazing the switch that I mean it was like night and day. I also read some books that were there, some medical stuff that was on veterinarian, and all of those books talked about the natural forms. God made foods. Talked about one of them actually discussed like the possible hydrogenation of fats, so like your Crisco and stuff like that. And I mean, these were industrialized oils that were supposed to be used in tractors and industrial machinery and tanks and things like that during the different wars. But now it's in people's food. So I was so glad that I got woke up to that so early on. And it made it a little difficult when I went to nursing school because let's see, I started eating correctly in 91 and I went to nursing school. Yeah. So I did my prereqs in like 2000. Yeah. So it was very hard to sit there and hear them talk about, K calories and um, you had to get your Bunsen burner up so high before this would burn. And I'm like, well, there's nothing inside my body that gets hot enough to do that. So what does my body think of a calorie? Well, it doesn't think of calories, has nothing. It is an absolute lie that they have sold us. Think of the billions of dollars they've made on those. Makes me crazy. Well, thank you, Susan. I wasn't expecting to kind of sell everything. It was kind of a warm day, so I did have a cooler in my car and I had the extra products sitting there and it was shaded. It was very windy that day. But yeah, it was so interesting because I had all age groups of people that went through this and it's a farming community. Lots of farm wives, anywhere from 80s down. Well, actually, I even had a 91-year-old, 80s down to like teenagers coming through. And I was so amazed how interested those younger ones were. The older ones were like, "Oh yeah, we've known this. Yeah, we know not to do that. We know not to eat that. We don't eat out of a box. We don't do any of, um, hence why they're still walking around at 90 and they're not sick. And we've got 45-year-olds that are sick all the time. So it was interesting though that these young ones, they were very interested. And so we'll see. They really love the young ones, the teenagers. Really, I mean, they bought my facial serum like crazy because it's so good for acne scars and to help prevent acne. And that went off the shelf. So I had to make a whole bunch of that the next day and put back on my site. But yeah, that was interesting to see. Kat says, "I'm glad I stocked up on your products for now." Yeah, yes, you did. You did. That was a lot, which is good. Um, it's good to have. Any of these things you can make yourself. And I do multiple videos, usually showing how you can do it yourself. Um, I like the idea of being able to do that. I like the stuff I'm making today is for some patients with psoriasis. And so, as I was talking to the gentleman yesterday about it, I'm naming off the ingredients that I'm going to be putting into this to really help with, the plaques. And he's like, "Oh, where do I get that? Where do I said, you know what? Already have them. I will just make up another one for you because I already was making some today for some other people in the community." That's the other thing is when you do what I do for a living, going into my own community, seeing these people, if I tell them something and it doesn't turn out to be so, I'm going to hear about it. If they aren't getting better by the recommendations I'm making, I will hear about it. If I do a good job, I also hear about it because they're very good about also doing that. But it's funny, you go to your doctor, and I'm not dogging every single doctor, but the majority that work for these big systems, yes. You go to your doctor and you got some kind of sickness. Never does it cross their minds of what can they do to prevent you from having this. They are trained for disease management. And so it's medications. Well, let's say that medication doesn't work and you go back in 3 months. Well, we'll just try a different one. That wasn't the right one for you. And then you do it again and again and again. What other place in your life are you okay with paying for a service and getting absolutely nothing out of it except sicker and broker, and you keep going back? So I'm like, you go to a chiropractor and it doesn't get any better, you don't go back. But we do that with our doctors. And part of it is the system is made up. You can't get the medication if you have some that's prescription without seeing him. Some of it is your job. You have to see, like my job, I have to go see the doctor once a year. That's the only time she sees the whites of my eyes ever. And she does not even bring up the big C word. And I don't mean cancer, I mean cholesterol. That no longer comes up anymore. And my labs are better than hers. And I'm not trying to be showboaty, but they are. Steely Dan. Oh, I love Steely Dan. Susan says, I crochet washcloths and people love them. Yes. Let me show you what my mom makes. Um, so these are some that she has made. Isn't that pretty? I love blue. Blue is my favorite color. And then camo. And then different browns and stuff like that. But that's the different she makes those. These are really tedious for me. I don't think I could do it. I'll just stick to like the blankets and things like that. I like to do those. So that is what I do. But that's awesome that you do that. That's nice to be able to give away to people at like Christmas time. It's not candy, it's not junk, it's not something that they're going to put on a shelf and never use. It's something that they'll utilize. I have been known to buy battery operated sewing machines, sewing kits, giving them away. Grandchildren, people that I know that crochet yarn, different size hooks, things like that, things that they may potentially need in the future. So growing up on Steely Dan music, lyrics opened my eyes to the yeah, yes, that is true. And I actually, even though politically we disagreed, George Carlin, a lot of his stuff is right on, right on. Let's see. Susan said, meant for it to power went out like people in the Helene disaster. Yeah. Also, yes, to have cash. Yes. So, in my home health ventures over the last few years, I took care of some Mormons. We live close to Nauvoo, Illinois, and they have like a huge temple there. And so they have a big population of Mormons. Some have stayed here, some do like their 2 year stint and then kind of roll through. And I had some that had been in Louisiana when Hurricane Katrina happened. And so anytime I do my admission, I always go over what do you have safety wise here? Do you have flashlights and batteries? Do you have a water supply? Do you have good salt? Do you have food? Do you have this and that? And I'm like, do you have a to go kit if you needed to leave your house? And I always tell them like a fish tackling box, it's just certain things. Like I would never eat what is that mix called where you have peanuts and raisins and all that? I would never eat something like that myself. I would actually starve to death before I would eat that. But that is good for people to have in those boxes, stuff like that. And I never thought about the money part of it. And he said the first thing that happened in Katrina, the banks closed their doors, of course. And he said the ATMs were down. You had nothing if you didn't have any. And he says, he says we had some large bills like $100 bills, but we didn't have ones and fives and tens and quarters and any of that stuff. And so he said in his, if you have to leave the home box, he ended up having all of that in there. And I was like, that's a good idea. So now when I'm admitting people and going over safety stuff and things to have in case of emergency, I add that in there. So something I learned from one of my patients. Let's see. Yes. Lisa, I agree to a degree on the water, on people that didn't stock up on some of that stuff. But I think the majority of the people that have the most damage, not sure how that ever even happened. Like when you look at the history of hurricanes and the way they behave, the way they drop off fluid, should have never happened. So it's just odd. And I'd say they probably didn't think it was going to happen. Mountain towns do not end up usually ever, ever, ever flooding. So it doesn't happen. So I'd say that is why part of the reason why they did not. Let's see. So Susan says, what is streaming in background? I came in late. Streaming in the background. I don't know. I don't know because I'm just doing this live, so I'm not sure um, if there's something else in the background. So Ellie says, yeah, we weren't sure if we should make bug out bags. And it depends. I mean, it depends where you live. Like if you're in a city, yeah, you probably are going to need to do that because the food supply is going to be, so quickly taken up unless you are prepared to hunker down, protect yourself, protect your stuff in your environment. Where I live, like I said, it's nothing but a large community of farming areas. Um, and unless I am called upon to help on a front line somewhere, I don't plan on, I'm not abandoning my house. So maybe my final resting place, who knows? But I don't plan on leaving for any other reasons. So Susan says, my parents were born in Italy, 1941 and 42. My Nana, oh yeah, your Nana was in World War II. I try hard to visit my parents once every week or so, cherishing before, or yeah, yes, you will miss them someday. I'm very fortunate that I still have my mother because in our family, people do not usually live much past 40. My dad was 42, and they live in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Pennsylvania's kind of been a hot spot here, in the last so many months. Let's see. I don't want to miss anybody. I am grateful. So Allie says, I am grateful that my family growing up never used Crisco and seed oils. We always used olive oil and butter. Right. That's good. Could have been worse. We never did low fat, but did have lots of processed snacks. Right. Yeah. That was just kind of the way it was. I mean, and they tell you it's healthy and they get to manipulate the guidelines so that you believe that it's healthy. Um, my husband told me when we first started dating in 2011 about reading ingredients and preservatives. We stopped fast food, which is wonderful. We believe the Sika method, though. Let's see, lots has changed for us. Yes, I'm sure it has. Um, Cammy says she's never, oh, you've never canned with the bone in the chicken. Okay. Yeah. And literally, I did it out of sheer laziness one day. I was like, I've got all these chicken legs and some chicken thighs. And I was like, I don't want to stand here and pull the skin off everything and debone everything. I mean, I have, and I do have some of that. But I was like, well, wouldn't that give all that nutrition out into the meat and into the broth? I thought, well, why not? So I did, and it really was good. So let's see. Watching from oh, Brenda, you're Vega, are you on vacation? Um, a go bag. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't have a go bag. My parents live in Fort Madison, Iowa, which is a little ways away, across state line, of course. And they do have what they call bug out bags ready to go. But the older they get, the more they're like, we're not leaving. And they're prepared to do whatever it needs to happen to be safe in their home. Let's see. And we live in, like, where I live, I literally could go out my back door and walk 100 yards maybe and could take deer if I needed to, rabbits, squirrel. Rabbits and squirrel are not ruminant animals, but I would eat them if I had to. I would not eat somebody's pet rabbit. Let me just throw that out there because I've had that statement made to me before, and I'm like, "I'm not eating somebody's pet rabbit." Yes, I know. Before I leave, I am going to turn that down. I'll show you kind of what it looks like, and then little over time, this will drop down even lower. So I'm going to put it on the smallest burner in the back. If I know, see, I don't even know which knob goes to what yet. Perfect. I'll turn that down. That's going to be too hot to hang on to, but I'll show you guys before I get off here what it looks like. So this is some turmeric. That's one of the ingredients I put into the tallow lotion that I make for people that have psoriasis. So see how it's kind of starting to get brown and stuff. And I mean, there's already probably a quart worth of fat in that. So I'm sure I'll probably get right at 2 quarts um, out of this. I'll be very surprised if I don't. Um, I'll probably get a quart and a half actually when it's all said and done because I'm going to use some of it to make my tallow lotion. I like to do it very fresh if I can. I prefer to do it that way. Let's see. Karen. Hi, Karen. I need to learn this rendering in Iowa visiting. Oh, I did. I saw that you were in Iowa. I think on my, I don't remember if it was on Russ's live or if it was on our Meaty Mondays live, but I did see that you were in Iowa. I was like, ooh, I wonder where she's at in Iowa. Is it close to Illinois or is it deeper into Iowa? Um, but yeah, this method is really the simplest for me. I feel it's the simplest. It's cut up the beef fat, put it in a pot, let it, do its thing on like a medium low till everything starts to change color and gets a little more opaque, and then turn it down, leave the lid on it. You can stir it occasionally, but I have literally left it sit like that for 3 hours, left, went and seen patients, went and did stuff, and come back and it's fine. So um, I think it's the easiest. And then what I do is I take hot water and fill my sink, and then I take the empty jars and I set them down to make sure that they're warm. They don't have to be boiling hot, but I get them warm And then once I strain out the fat, which I save, those little remnants of fat, I use those for my fat bites all through the week. But once I do that, then I pour the hot oil directly in here, making sure not to get it on the rim. If you think you did, just take some vinegar on a paper towel or cloth and wipe around that rim just so you get a good seal. Then I put the lid and the ring on good and tight. You have to have hot pads because it will burn the crap out of you. And then, like I said, turn it upside down 3 to 5 minutes, turn it back over, and within 20 minutes, you're hearing every one of them. They'll pop, they'll seal. And I've used that tallow that's up to 10 years old, eating wise and in products, and it does fine. So let's see. Ah, Susan says, yeah, the devil, debate, evil. Yes. I don't say that name out loud because it's the devil. Um, yeah. I think we're actually kind of fortunate that they picked who they picked for the VP because the other person you named is actually very intelligent, but they couldn't do that because of, who he is and what he is, which is a shame. But I'm glad for us. I think that's a good thing. I am over a bridge in New Jersey. Our governor, yeah, yeah, yes. I know there's a lot of bad governors out there. It sucks. Anyway, so I feel like this is pretty good information. I feel like you should be able to follow along. I do always let you know if you have comments or questions, put them on the video. It shows up later on my phone. And I always check, I always get back with people. And then, you can follow my at Healthy Carnivore. If you don't mind political and lots of pictures of fake food, on Facebook, I am Laura P. Rissell. And then I have Twitter, I have all those X, whatever you want to call it, um, all of the other places that aren't quite as crazily controlled by Zuckerberg. Um, so you can follow me on those if you want to. And then my website, of course, is russellbrands.com, and that's with a Z. If you're interested in looking at any of the products that I make, I've made them for myself for over 2 decades, um, and just figured I need to make inexpensive things for people to be able to get that are even on a fixed income. So I keep things very low. That was the other thing this weekend. My facial serum is 30 mLs and it'll last months and months and months using it. And one of the young girls said that she had bought a facial serum, and I don't remember it wasn't Neutrogena, but it was somebody like that, a big name. And she spent over $60 on it, and it was the same size bottle. And she said, "I know it had lots of ingredients in it." She says stuff I couldn't even read, didn't chemicals and stuff like that. And I said, "Well, mine's listed right here." Because I had a big thing of all the ingredients of everything that's in there. So just throwing that out there. I keep them cheap. So anyway, I'm going to get off here, get the lotions, some of the lotion. I'm making two types. So the first one, I'm going to use some cold tallow to start it. But for the stuff for the people with, the psoriatic stuff going on, I'm going to use the pure that I just got done doing. So that I'll finish in a little bit. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys watching this. And hopefully, I always get comments about the bread in the background. It's always so funny. I'm like, disclaimer, I can live in a household with somebody else that eats junk. And that to me does not constitute food. I look at my food as fuel. And it doesn't have to be cute and pretty and bright and vibrant. It just has to be nourishing me. So that's what I do. So, as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. Have a wonderful day.